Welcome to Spartan Up podcast. We're here today in Los Angeles, Dodger Stadium. We've got the stadium sprint going on. It's an incredible race. More importantly, we're doing the Spartan Up podcast. We've got Colonel Nye, Johnny Waite, Sephra, Joe Desena, our producer Marion. And this guest is out of this world. Originally, it was two guests. We were going to have Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reece, big wave surfer, professional volleyball player, world champion. Turns out that Laird couldn't be here. He was in Kauai, saving people after their 100-year flood. True waterman, true hero. So Gabby,
I'm kind of glad that he didn't make it.
Gabby was incredible. Like this interview is so powerful, and I'm glad that we didn't have to share her with anybody else right then. But we want to share her with you. Check this out, Gabby Reece, power mom, power human being, model, fitness expert, world champion volleyball player, and as you say, bit of a Yoda. She's incredible.
She's Yoda. Do or do not. This is an unbelievable guest we have at Spartan Up Podcast, Dodger Stadium. I am sitting next to the one and only Gabby Reece, volleyball superstar, super mom, married to some guy named Laird Hamilton, surfing dude.
He's really the superhero in the family. That's
you
right.
guys should do a deal with Marvel.
Yeah, I don't know. He doesn't want to, I don't think he wants to be away from the ocean that long that it would take to actually shoot the other stuff.
Got it. He's do you still play, to that point, do you still play volleyball?
You know, I haven't played in a while. I got a fake knee about 18 months ago. Well, actually a little longer. And so I'll start playing again. But it hurt so much before I got it done. I didn't play for a little bit. But up until about 3 years ago, I was still playing for fun. I usually play with guys on Kauai. That was my...
Guys.
The men.
Men. Can they keep up?
Oh, yeah. And they don't... There's... Like, when I play with the girls I used to compete with, we all still do the same things. Like, are you sure that hit the line? They check. And I'm like, oh, my God, 20-something years and we're still talking about this? Yeah. So with guys, they kind of have it all out, and then it's over, and then you move on, which I like.
They just drop it.
Yeah. And they can even be friendly after.
So are you, but do you like it still after all these years?
That's a great question. I think I understand what I really love about volleyball. And there are days where maybe I like it less because I'm not as good as I have been in my life, like as finely tuned. Sure. But I think what I like is the understanding of playing a game. You know, when you're young and you pick it up, you love the learning and the progress because you're exponentially better from like month to month. But the other thing that you love is like it's a game and it's fun and you have teammates and it's sort of all that celebration. So I'm reminded of that. But yes, I mean, there are days where I'm like, really? Like you're out here playing volleyball, maybe do something else.
Another game,
sure.
Another day. Kids play it?
No, not at all. I have a daughter who's into tennis and a daughter who's graduating college, so she's been focusing on that. And my youngest is into tennis and horseback. But I have a feeling that they will sort of start to sniff around at my younger too. But it just can't come from me. It has to be such a personal discovery.
Sure. Well, that was a question. Like a lot of times a super parent like that coming from a super sports background will push it and they reject it.
It's a nightmare for children.
Yeah.
Are you going to be like your dad or are you going to be like your mom? And so I never grew up with that. We joke in our house that if we were like sober and paid our rent, we transcended our parents. I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but it's sort of pretty true for both Laird and I. And so we thought going into it like, oh, if we're healthy and we're like trying to have this good relationship and it's safe and we're not doing drugs and alcohol or whatever, that would fix everything. And then you realize like your kids have a whole other set of things that you didn't have to experience. And so even though that's not maybe the lingo in the house, it's the lingo from the outside world to them. Sure. And like, for example, my 14-year-old daughter at this very moment looks the part. Right? She's very tall, she's athletic, so everyone puts that obvious thing on her. Yeah. And so I'm starting to learn as a parent, I've been parenting for over 20 years, and now I'm finally learning, it's a great thing, that you don't really know their experience, and you don't know what the outside world is telling them, and so you just have to, do your best to listen, but then help them navigate it.
And my wife was a soccer player, not at your level of volleyball, but a high level, and I remember one day, we have 4 children, she was crying and she said, oh, they don't like soccer. And I called my dad because I'd never had kids before. And I was like, I don't even know anything about soccer. And he goes, well, does she play soccer with them? I go, no. Yeah. Well, how the hell are they going to like soccer then?
Yeah.
So did you go through any of those swings?
Yeah, like one of my youngest daughter would ask me to pepper, which is like, it's sort of the back and forth between two people, like how they warm up. Yeah. And so we did that a little bit. And then my middle daughter has said, I would like you to maybe teach me some of the fundamentals. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, I'm your mom.
Because it's going to get serious real quick.
Well, no, not even that. No kid believes their parents. Right. You don't know what you're talking about. So if I said, like, bend your knees, they might be like, well, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. And so I think it's been a combination. But we do try to create an environment where it isn't like one of my daughters worked out with me today, and she'll say, oh, I don't want to do that. And I go, great, don't do it. Just, you're here. That's all that matters. Like, you do what is fun to you, because it shouldn't be about training. It should still be about play and discovery and fun and movement. And I actually think, even though there's a level of discipline and punishment within rigid training that everybody knows, especially if you're trying to get results, that still, where is the fun or the play in there, even in the grind? So I think with her, I'm just sort of saying, like, oh, this is kind of fun and this is what we do.
Write that one down. Find the play in the grind.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very true. And it's like I have one daughter who's very, very creative, and she's incredibly powerful. So the obvious is, I'm like, oh man, if I had that motor, I would be so dangerous. But I'm putting my stuff on her. And what I say to her, though, is whatever it is that you're going to pursue, everything is a grind. So just make sure that that is okay with you. And so in a way, like, that's what I feel so strongly about sports is, yeah, it's fun, and sometimes there's glory, and there's all these things, and winning is nice, but the everyday is a grind. So if you don't really genuinely enjoy that, it's probably not for you.
Sure, you're gonna get burnt out.
It's done, right. Yeah. It's just, and it's like, oh, it's no fun, and it's sort of like reading for me. I feel this way about movement, which is whatever turns you on, but the idea of, like, could you keep doing it for an extended period of time, that's more important.
Sure. How has fitness changed for you over the years?
It's changed so much. I was a really late bloomer as far as sports and such, so I got kind of really focused on it. I moved from the Caribbean in 11th grade and never trained, just played the sports.
You played volleyball, though, prior to 11th grade?
Very little.
Okay.
But I was 6'3". So, it's sort of an inherent advantage. And if you're not two left feet, you're sort of, oh, yay, you're on the court. Just stand there, don't make mistakes. But and then when I was in college, we started training. So at 17, I always joke, like, I'm the same height. And right now, today, I weigh 180. And when I went into college, same height, I weighed 145, right? Wow. And so then I started lifting, but really kind of basic stuff, not that sophisticated at all. And then when I went out and kind of fell into playing professionally, I got my first really good trainer, this gentleman, T.R. Goodman. He has a company called Pro Camp. He does a lot of hockey guys and stuff. And so that was my first introduction. And then I started getting introduced to people like Paul Check. And so it became about performance first in volleyball. And then what I started to realize is, like, the art of training and the art of, can I make myself better? Could I be faster? Could I be stronger? And then it became, could I wake up each day and improve in some way? I'm 48 years old, so, I've been doing this a long time, 30 years.
I would have said 28. I'm not just saying.
Yeah, okay.
So whatever is going
on. Listen, I live in
it.
reality. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. My license, I'm not hiding anything. But even living with Laird, I met Laird in 95. So I've had someone in my home that has inspired me, but the reasons he does things is so different, and it also is so creative, and he's so curious that he also taught me not to be as linear about my training, because that's my nature.
Yeah. But most athletes coming from a specific sport are very linear, right?
Yes, and it's great, but it can inhibit you. It can keep you from new things. Yeah. From uncomfortable things, from not being good at things.
Or just not getting injured by practicing stuff that's not so specific.
All the time. Right. So even moving out of your sport, it was being open to things that you were like, it's kind of, I'm curious, but I'm also intimidated. Because that's the problem with getting good at something. Yeah. It either liberates you to go, cool, I'll try everything, or it keeps you in a box because you don't want to show that you're weak in other areas.
I've had a lot of Olympians come train with us, and I'll say, hey, let's go ski today.
Yeah.
No, we can't ski. It's too dangerous.
Yeah.
And so, they get very tunnel vision on what they do, and that's all they do. Yeah.
And it's comfortable, and it's what they're known for, but I think that's like a slow death. Yeah. And living with Laird's so the opposite. Yeah. And also then what happens is he's so incredibly well-rounded. So training for me changed in this way of, like, not only being more experimental, but now we do, like, this pretty radical pool training we've done for about close to 10 years. Yeah. And so now you're saying, hey, I can be ballistic, but without the impact.
Sure.
Or I can just, even the fact that I'm in a different environment. And so a little bit of the play, but then what you start doing is you start looking at training really as a whole landscape, as a puzzle. So you go, okay, well, maybe my strength is pretty good. I'm feeling like my range of motion, and I need to spend more energy and time there. So I feel like it's always moving, and you're sort of tending to the garden where it's needed.
Plus, it keeps you from being bored.
You have to. I mean, that's the other thing. Is like people, I love these guys. They come out and I see them at Gold's Gym, in Venice, and they're 23, and I'm like, yeah, talk to me in like 30 years. Where it's like, how do you do it day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year? And
without being injured and staying excited about it.
Yeah, and not being neurotic. Yeah. See, that's the other thing, is that constant calibration of being too obsessive, even in the food. Like, people like this, like, oh, I don't eat this, and I don't do that.
I don't know anybody like this.
I mean, it's like you go, what's the point? Yeah. Like, at a certain point, the thing about moderation, right? Like, even moderation and moderation. Like, it's like, I feel like sometimes when people get so intense, now if you have an event coming up, that's different. But I'm saying as you go through life...
those lulls, like a boxer would have a lull.
You have to. You can't just hammer it down. Now, like Laird hammers it down quite a bit. Yeah. But then I see even with him in his experience, he's gotten better at knowing, like, oh, I feel like I just want to do this, which might be sauna. And I'm like, then that's probably what you should do.
Yeah. You've got a little like Yoda in you. I'm noticing.
What do you
Remember,
mean?
like in Star Wars, like Yoda?
Yeah, it's called I've been married for 20-something years.
No,
to like a really intense person.
There is no.
So you're always like
not.
trying to. Yeah, no, I'm nothing of the kind. Like I was laughing when you're like super parent. I was like, yeah, right. That's actually probably the thing I'm not the worst at, but I think that's what everyone feels, right? No, I just, listen, as you go through life, you have to keep looking up to see where you want to go and how you want to add on and kind of grow and change the narrative and not just keep doing the same thing over and over. And I think that's really, if you ask me, that's what I keep trying to do. But I will say it's easier because I have someone I live with that it's sort of built in.
Pushing those things, yeah.
It is easier, I'm not going to lie. So I always say to people, listen, it's like what you guys have created, that community.
Sure.
Because then you go, look at, oh, what are they doing over there? And, oh, what are they doing?
Sure. Let's take a break. I've gotten a signal for the last 30 seconds. But Johnny will give me a signal. Then Marion doesn't realize Johnny gave me the signal.
Oh, it's good.
Marion's giving me a signal.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm seeing these.
Yeah, welcome to entertainment, buddy.
So,
yeah. Spartans, Zach Evanish here from the Strong Life Podcast and the Underground Strength Gym. Wanted to tell you about Joe Desena's new book, The Spartan Way. It's based on the principles that have been battle tested by over 1 million Spartans on how to be more fit, how to be more resilient in life, how to eat healthy and simplify your life and be more resilient. You could pick this book up anywhere online books are sold. It's already available for pre-sale right now. If you want to be more fit, stronger, and more resilient in life, check out this book. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, you name it, that's where you could get it. We'll see you soon, Spartans.
let's go back to parenting. So I do, based on what you were saying, I'm doing everything wrong.
No, I think it's the most personal thing in the world, but I always joke there is sometimes a difference, obviously, between dads and moms. And also I have 3 daughters. I don't have 3 sons. So there's like nuance and intricacies. And this is something I learned that's really important as a parent for all parents, whatever the scenario is, because I think it's, again, a really personal and private thing, or just so personal. And each kid's different, each family's different. But this is what I know. I created a system as a young person that helped me get out, like helped me be successful, whatever that means, helped me achieve goals, things like that. And then you realize that was good, but maybe it's not working perfectly for parenting, and you have to be willing to adjust your system and your way. And if it was Archie Bunker, he'd say, this is the way I do it and everyone suck it, right? I mean, that would be it. And what you learn as a parent is it's okay to say, wow, I am well-intended. That obviously is not working for that particular kid. Let me look at that. And so that's the only thing I will say, is, especially having teenagers, that I've learned that it's like, you mean well, your heart's in the right place, and sometimes, you know what, you still got to make changes. And it's a tough pill to swallow, but it gets easier if you just say, okay, instead of defending it.
Yeah, no, I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking of all the scenarios and the kids, and I've got one that just requires a different system.
Yes.
And yeah.
That's it, because I have one daughter, for example, she'll say, It's not the words you say. I'm just reading the way you say it. And the other kids could care less. They're just like, yes, no, great. And so it's just learning, oh, that's her language. And it's us to be reminded, too, that actually our kids are here. They are here to make us hopefully bigger, expand, because it's painfully uncomfortable. And if it was a friend, you'd be like, awesome, go to your house.
Sure.
So it's different. So with that, and then we were talking earlier about, let's say someone's trying to get started. You guys are way down the road. Everyone's going crazy, and people who get started. This is what I say to people. It isn't everything all at once. If you could sort of say, okay, this week, what's my worst habit? Is it something in your diet or something in your no moving? Could I get rid of my one worst thing and go from there? And the other thing is scheduling everything. For beginners or for people who maybe they've been off track or haven't gotten on track, writing everything down, penciling it in, saying, okay, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm spending 30 minutes doing this. Write it down, and then write down the food. Because as you guys know, I think when you really see it, you can even say, oh, well, over here I'm stressed out. Look what I grab when I'm stressed out. Getting people to really understand.
See those connections.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I always say for the person starting, and get a friend. Because you'll blow it off for yourself, you won't blow it off for somebody else. So I think for people getting started, that's a really simple way to get started. And consistency is more important than I did 2 hours on Monday and nothing the rest of the week. I'd rather see a little bit all the time. And
I have a buddy we're filming that's 55-ish years old, famous author, great funny guy. Everybody likes him. He's hung out with Mikhail Gorbachev, Gerard Butler. Everybody, you probably know him. And I'm like, you got to be more Spartan. I want to clean you up. I give up the ice cream. Let's get you racing and running. And the battle is, well, Joe, relax a little bit. You're a little too tense. Enjoy some ice cream. Drink some wine. Yeah. And so we're just constantly, and so I'd love to know your take on that, because I know moderation, right?
Yes.
Which I'm not great at. But at the same time, you want to be on the planet for as long as you can. You want to be as healthy as you can. And I'm just, I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think it's each person's objective. Right? So, for example, if your objective is very specific and this is the way you can accomplish that, as long as it's not creating out of whack balance in your personal life, because that's important. I think to have meaningful and full relationships that you're spending time in with your children or your partner or friends, this is part of longevity. Sense of purpose and connection has everything to do with purpose of life.
Sure.
You can be 6% body fat your whole time. It won't in the end say, oh, that was the purpose. Sure. So I think it's if you can balance that.
So let them have some time for a friend or two, but give up the ice cream.
Well, no, but your friend that you're talking about has different objectives.
Yes.
So you're trying to match your objectives, and they're different. So that's where maybe the mismatch is.
That's where the rub is.
Yeah, because, I have friends that are like, oh, I like to get my butt up like this and like that, but they don't really want to be like, rah. So they're living in a place that they meet really their honest objective. And I think that's more important, is understanding, well, what does he really want? And if it's lip service, then say, hey, you got to rejigger that.
Everybody wants to live a long, healthy life. Who doesn't want to live a long, healthy life?
Yes, they do, but at what level? See, you're saying, hey, I want to maybe, like Laird's best friend is 84, literally, does the senior games. And so it's important to him to be out there on his bike and compete. He does the senior games. So he does what it takes to live that specific goal of long-term health and wellness, because he also wants to kick ass.
Sure.
So you're talking about, I want to kick ass at 90. You're not talking about like,
be active. I mean, I'm not looking for a gold medal in the 80s, but.
Yeah, but you're talking about kicking ass. I already know. So you can't say like, oh, well, yeah. You're not talking about, I'd like to be independent and get up and off my chair and my toilet by myself. You're talking about, hey, I want to kick ass. And if I have some guy who's 50, I could maybe give him a rub when I'm 80. Right. That's a different objective. Yeah. So that takes different work at the top.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And
I'll decide if we're going to use this then.
All right. And the last.
I don't know if it agrees with me. No, I'm kidding.
I can see that. Your wife must be a saint. She's like,
my wife is a saint.
She's well, no, because she loves you for the thing that you are.
Right.
I live with someone like that, where it's like connected to all this radical stuff, and I'm like, yes, but it is connected to the very thing that I admire and love about this person. So you understand. I always say we all pay the tab. What tab do you want to pay?
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about living with a superpower. How does that work?
A lot of times people go, "Oh, you're both so dominant and this and that." And I've run into some hurdles in my conversation about this, in my experience, which is I am probably considered an alpha female, alpha, whatever. But when I'm in my home, I choose to be kind of soft and feminine. It doesn't mean I don't have limits. like recently Laird and I have been running into each other, and it's like I just know how I can put the limit up. But I have found that when I take on the feminine energy in the house, Laird it puts him in his best self. And I don't compete with Laird. This is a big mistake I see a lot of couples doing, and unless they can handle it, because we couldn't handle it. I mean, board games, the whole 9 yards. I see certain people where they just compete, and I'm like, well, no, you're in a relationship. That's actually the thing you're doing together. So what I say is, even though, yes, we're both very strong, within it, my attitude is, how could I make his life better? Ultimately, why am I in the relationship? It's like many of my friendships, like, what can I do? Oh, you enjoy it when I make dinner for you, and you enjoy these things that I think of you, so it's my honor to do so, and he's taking care of his side. I'm not in charge of him. Sure. That was very clear to women at home. I always say, like, you're not their mother, and that's really important. To nurture is different to mother than to mother. Right. And so I think if you're, especially with a strong man, it's better to nurture. And for boys, what I would tell them at home is, if you could treat your partner more like your girlfriend than your wife or a long-term partner, you probably will get more of the response that you want. Right. Instead of like, oh, there she is, like, oh, I know you look pretty, and oh, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, we're having sex, and oh, she's smiling at me, and it's all these things. Yeah. And so I think if both sides bring their best, yeah. But to compete, I think it's a very specific couple that, to push each other is different than to compete. But if you're always like, I'm back and forth, we would kill each other.
Did you have a moment where it was a little competitive? Because you're
in the beginning, sure. Yeah. And then we were like, oh yeah, when Laird's driving home in the back of the truck with the dogs, and I'm driving because I won't be with him after volleyball practice, or board games have gone flying across the room, you start going, well, are we just dating for a couple years? Because then that's cool. Right. But if we're really going to be together, right. For our dynamic, because we're both so intense, yeah. It just doesn't work. So I always say, there's a guy named Jordan Peterson that people have been talking about. He said he studied the Bible when it said, the meek shall inherit the earth. He said what he really understood about the meaning is that they all had swords, they just didn't unsheath them. And so I think in a way, if you ask me in my home, it's like someone who's a great fighter. Oh no, let's calm down, everybody relax. I want to be that person. I really do want to be strong and intense, but I'd rather first come at it, with the sword shield. In a humility and in a service. And Laird is really the same way. In fact, he's probably shown me more about how to do that than that came to me naturally. So I think if you say to me, that's how we have two really intense personalities. Doesn't mean we don't run into each other occasionally, but we try not to.
We've done about 300 interviews. We've interviewed psychologists, coaches, all kinds of people, and you're pretty good.
No, it's just, this is all about learning. When you tell your kids, it's okay that you made this mistake, but can you learn from it? That's all it is. It's going through it and going, all right, this is working, but can it be better, and how is that going to happen?
Did you live in a monastery or something to learn from monks, or where'd you get all this?
No, I come from a completely dysfunctional home, of
Really?
course, yeah.
But she's good, right? Yeah.
No, I think it's practical life stuff. And I think what happens is, because I have such a really defined partner, I've learned a lot being with Laird. Because he's, there's certain things so defined about him. And really, it's like, if anyone's traveling through their life, if you sort of say, hey, I would like it to be peaceful and loving and, intense and gnarly and all these things, well, what does that mean? And how do you participate in that to make it that way? And that's the thing for me. It's like, I can do a little bit of this and that, and it makes a big impact.
Tell us about this business you have.
Oh, XPT or the creamer.
The creamer.
Yeah, so the creamer is, kind of lightning in a bottle. Laird has been a freak about coffee for 20-something years, flying beans in. He used to do an oil formula. And then a guy, we have another business called Golf Board, and the CEO of that was like, Laird's friends are crazy about this coffee. And it's sort of like, okay, Bulletproof came from yak butter tea and, all the stuff. And Paul Chek was giving Laird ghee in his coffee 20 years ago. And they made it into powders, and so it's vegan, gluten-free, really good fat, gets delivered with the caffeine. And so, for example, you can perform for probably 4 or 5 hours from it, and then eat lunch. And there's turmeric-flavored cacao, regular. And it's oddly been really successful. You know why? Any business you can do that people do it every day, and it's legal, it's a pretty good business to be in. Like, we're like, oh, who knew? Yeah. Laird and I were in a photo shoot last week, and he did, or maybe 2 weeks ago now, and he did not want to be in a photo shoot. And he whispered in my ear, he's like, come on, creamer. So I'm like, yeah. Because he just wants to be out on the ocean and do his thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about the other business? You said you had...
Oh, well, we have XPT, which is a training business. So now we're doing search for trainers. And it really came again from our whole training lifestyle. So there's pool training, which I really like the pool training. There's heat and ice, so thermoregulating together. And then we have a series of breathing and different things that we're doing. And that, again, is doing really well. It only took us, 30 years.
Nice.
That's what,
It's a 30-year overnight
that's
success.
that's what you remind people. It's like, hey, if you believe enough in it and you can be realistic about it and keep working hard, it usually can go somewhere.
So I got to throw everything I've been doing out the window. I apologize to the audience. All these things we've been teaching you are
No,
wrong.
that's not. Oh, am I good?
No, your stuff is good.
No, come on. What are you teaching that
No,
is
I'm
incompetent?
kidding. I wake the kids up at 5:30 in the morning. I make them do a workout. Yeah,
But don't
it's
you
like,
know about the sleeping part for for teenagers especially?
Sleep when you're dead is our... I'm kidding.
Really?
I'm kidding.
How old are your kids?
My oldest is 12.
So you just do some reading about what the brain and everything needs to sleep. That's why they act like that. Plus, it's not developed yet. That's a whole other... And is he a boy or a girl?
2 boys, 2 girls.
Yeah, wait till you get teenage girls, buddy. You're going to be like uncle. You'll be like with your face on the mat going, okay.
My
Ice cream.
5-year-old hasn't been part of the program, the every morning program. And
Yeah.
I'm like, to my wife, I'm like, we got to get her going. She's going to fall behind. She's 5 years old.
Yeah.
But-
Have you ever heard of destiny?
Yeah.
People have them,
They have destinies.
Yes, they do.
Yoda.
No, it's just, we think we're in charge, but we're
We're really not.
not so much, I don't think.
So Laird was supposed to be here,
Yes.
but he swam. Wait, he swam to Hawaii. What?
He jet skied. No, we were on Kauai, and right before we left, because we based there 6 months and based in California 6 months, they had a 100-year flood.
Wow.
So they're measured out at 27 inches for the day, but it was really 55 inches.
Wow.
So we have a property on sort of the calm side of all the action, but connected to a river that goes out into the North Shore Ocean. Wow. So we had boats and skis and everything, and Laird was spending probably 8 days doing rescues. I think he probably was involved with about 70 or 80 people getting rescued. Wow. But more importantly for him right now, they've got barges coming with heavy equipment like bulldozers and things like that because the end of the road slid into the ocean. So 2,000 people are stuck on the Wainiha Hyanna side. So if anyone's ever hiked the Kalalau Trail, you can't get to it now. So Laird has been navigating the guys coming with the barges safely because of the ocean, because of his experience and whatnot. So Laird is actually, this is what I say he's built for. When it's really critical, he's on the mark. And also, in Hawaii and like other cultures, helping one another and doing your part is what you do. Yeah. And so it's not Laird, it's the entire group of people are jumping in. And you'll see like kids making sandwiches, like it's whatever you can do. Yeah. So awesome. He's dealing with that.
You're awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure your kids are going to come out like
not,
superheroes.
If not, you adopt them.
Listen, we say an expert's somebody who lives a mile away, right? Yeah. So it's like whether it's your partner or your kids, they're like, yeah. But it's going in, don't worry. Because you're the example. Yeah. They don't hear you. They're not listening. They're watching.
Well, Joe, I tell you, for me, one of the more interesting interviews you've ever done. I mean, Gabby was an extraordinary speaker. Didn't buy into or didn't have the same vision that you did in every aspect. And it was interesting kind of to watch that back and forth, but a very confident, very articulate, very self-confident and powerful woman.
Yeah, I have to admit, it made me question everything I've done on the planet so far because she seemed like she knew a lot more than I did.
One of the first times I've seen you.
Well, she was confident is what she was.
Yeah.
She knew what she knew.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
I know what I know.
No, I was going to say she's also a bit of a philosophical martial artist because she didn't punch you right back. She redirected some of your thoughts and energies. Like it wasn't she was saying, Joe, you're wrong. And I loved when she said afterwards, she said, no, you know what? You got to do what you're going to do, and you got to do different things with different kids. And if you're just putting the effort in and trying, you're probably doing the right things. But I love that she provided some, like you say, some alternative approaches to what you would do.
I had the fortunate meeting with Ari Emanuel. Ari Emanuel owns UFC, WME, IMG. His brother's Chicago mayor. The other brother is like a world-class surgeon. So clearly power family. Yeah. And I asked Ari, how did that happen? How did 3 brothers get to that level? And he said, the one thing that we think, me and the brothers think, changed our life was our dad pushed us incredibly hard at the dinner table every night we would have knockout, drag-out arguments that were planted on purpose so that we could practice defending ourselves and our arguments. And so I don't know. I mean, did you see the movie Molly's Game? Have you seen the movie Molly's Game?
I haven't. I've heard it's great.
But in a true story, based on a true story, and a couple of brothers and a sister. Molly's the sister, obviously, and two like world-class Olympic type kids. One a doctor. One becomes a gold medalist, I believe, and then Molly. And same thing. Dad pushed. Kevin Costner plays a dad. Pushed really hard. So I'm not saying I'm right, but she's got a different approach.
Yeah, I saw Step Brothers.
Listen, you don't know what's gonna right. You just don't know.
But also, I think that when you have people who are they're powerful people. I mean, their presence. Laird's a big guy. He does incredible things. She obviously has some pretty amazing control of her own mind to do the things she's done. I think that they lead by example too. Like they're not hammering their kids, but I don't think they walk around day to day schlupping it. You know what I mean?
No, right.
They get up and they're powerful, and the kids get up and they're powerful. So even if she says we're not drilling it into them, they're certainly instilling it in them anyway.
Sure.
That powerful way of being.
Agreed.
Well, I thought it was interesting when she talked about the home life, right? And about, again, do you need to compete at all times?
Yeah.
Or she purposely allows him to take the lead in the house, right? And she is comfortable being a wife, a mother in that role, and doesn't...
In her femininity.
Right, comfortable in her femininity, doesn't feel the need to compete. And just quickly, when I was first married, not first married, but when I was married early in my marriage.
You've only been married once.
Yeah,
Your first wife, Carla.
my father-in-law was visiting, and I thought this was an interesting comment at the time. I've looked back on it over the years and figured it out. But my wife and I were having a bit of a competition about something, and he actually took me into the room and said, "There can only be one captain of this ship. You two need to figure out who that is." And I thought in my head, well, that's kind of strange. You raised her. You're the one that created that, I mean, so now I'm just trying to battle it. But he said, it doesn't always have to be you. But you got to figure it out who's leading it.
I grew up in a crazy neighborhood, and I grew up next to a boss, a big organized crime boss. And the wife was really the boss.
Yeah, sure.
But she knew how
Courtney's really the boss, Joe.
My wife's really the boss. But she knew in that relationship how to make him think he was the boss.
So she was really good at leading from behind.
Yes.
Yeah. One thing I want to mention about Gabby, so I was researching that a little bit because her comment, she took a lot of flack for that from feminists and and I'm not saying feminists are as a bad thing. I don't mean that in the pejorative, but she took a lot of flack for how dare you tell women to step back. And her answer was brilliant. She said, "I'm not saying that's the woman's role. I'm saying in our relationship, that's the role I took on." And I think that was a real show of power, that I was confident enough and willing enough to say, I don't need to be the leader here. I don't need to drive and put him in his place. I'm very happy to be more of the traditional, providing that comfort in that home place and let him be the alpha. Sure. And so, for somebody who inherently is an alpha, that's a powerful choice to make. And again,
you got to be confident, right?
And sometimes, it's the husband who does that, who says, "I'm going to let her lead," and that's great. But
she's got a lot of reasons to be
smashing
confident.
heads all the time. Yeah.
She's been given a lot of gifts.
I think it's lovely, right? Because I think she said, you go into a relationship not to be like, beat your chest and say, I'm better than you, I'm better than you. It's like two very powerful, strong people are coming together, say, let's do this together. And when you do that, right, when you hybridize that, then you have to figure out what patterns and principles, like where do we have and how can we mesh it together and how do we create a beautiful homeostasis? And I've never been around someone so articulate and strong and hilarious and kind of sarcastic. And it's just, you can tell that that's such a great family, that's a dynamic that works. And people are so all about winning in competition. Relationships should be like loving and just like a woven thing. And one quickly, Joe, I know it might paradigm shift what you think about your kids, but Joe's kids are just about the sweetest, most elegant, lovely, strong, awesome, amazing children I've ever been around. So I think you're doing a lot of things
when you
right,
lock
Joe.
them up in the basement 6 hours a day, it makes it easy.
We slice the celery so you can get it under the door.
The other thing she said that I think is important, and it's something that a lot of our guests talk about. These are powerful people who've achieved success in their own life. But you know what they talk about, and she talked about, is service. She talked about she wanted to be of service to her family, of service to people. And Laird, he's down there in Kauai saving people. It's all about service.
Directing the boats in because the road washed out, right? It fell off, and so he knows how to navigate around the huge waves because that's his
And so
marine topography.
So they've both found a way to serve people, and so many of our guests find a way to serve people. So if you want to find out more about guests that serve people, how you can serve people, how you can become
Serve,
a powerful
not serve.
person in your life so you can be a bigger contribution to the world, go to Spartan.com/podcast. Equally importantly, subscribe, whether it's on iTunes or YouTube. Watch it every week. Share it with your friends. Thanks so much.
Toodles.
Thanks for listening to Spartan Up. If you like our show, be sure to tell your friends about it and help us rip 5 million people off the couch. Then subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you catch our show. We're here every Tuesday, learning from someone new and sharing the lessons with you. Spartan Up is brought to you by Spartan Race. To find a race near you, visit Spartan.com.